Hello there, and welcome to Play the Game with Steve. Villains Beyond. Episode 4. Norman Osborn.
And don't forget about me, the Green Goblin.
We'll dive into this unique design with the first villain with an alter ego persona. We'll explore the villain's stats and how he evolves from stage to stage. We'll make sure we understand the game mechanics that are unique to this character. Then we're going to explore his villain's signature cards and all the ways that he is going to interact with our heroes. And then finally, and what you're here for, we'll take a look at some of the modular sets that we can add to increase the overall thematics, difficulty, or just plain enjoyment of this character. So all this and more on this episode of Villains Beyond, the Green Goblin and the weakling Norman Osborn. First things first, let's talk about the elephant in the room. My card might be looking different than the one that you have at home. That's because there was an organized play kit, and this is the original, and this is the alter that you can find maybe at a local game store. You can ask your LGS to see if they still have any, or if they can order it from FFG, or then you can always look on eBay. That being said, here we go. Osborn is a genius and a businessman. Businessman trait, man. I hope they do something with that. He's got 14 health. He's got a scheme of 2. He is an attack with a star, and that's going to be consistent between all 3 stages. The star is always going to represent the forced interrupt, and what it does is when he would attack, you place 1 infamy counter on criminal enterprise instead, and then he has a forced interrupt, and that is the same again, consistent on all 3 stages. When Norman Osborn would take any amount of damage, you remove that amount of infamy counters instead. We'll explore the infamy counters in a minute. On stage 2, he has got 18 hit points per player. He's got a scheme of 2 and the same thing, force interrupt, but now he places 2 infamy counters if he would attack. He places 2 infamy counters on the criminal enterprises, so that's the only thing different. Force interrupt remains the same. And on stage 3, he's got 22 health per player. He's got a scheme of 3 and the force interrupt when he would attack. Instead, he places 3 infamy counters. So you can see 1, 2, and 3. The stages kind of like coalesce. All right, and then again, same thing, the force interrupt when he would take any amount of damage.
But enough of this weakling, Osborn. Let's see the goblin side. Yes, finally, the good part.
All right. And Green Goblin he has the goblin trait. He is a thwart of a star and an attack of 3, so you see the duality here. He has a when revealed, we deal 3 indirect damage to each player in hero form, and the little star represents when Green Goblin would scheme, remove 1 madness counter from State of Madness instead. We don't see what those are yet. Now in goblin form is the only way that Norman Osborn can take damage. So you're going to have to flip him from stage to stage. On stage 2, he now again has the star. He has a 4 attack and has a when revealed, deal 4 indirect damage to each player. So that is going to come out swinging. With an attack of 4, it's pretty brutal. And then the force interrupt, when he would scheme, same thing. You remove 1 madness counter from the State of Madness. And then finally on stage 3, again, he has that little star for the thwart and an attack of 4. His when reveal is deal 4 damage to each player, and his force interrupt is the same thing, but now when he would scheme, he removes the 2 madness counters from the State of Madness. Now, one thing to point out is if you are playing and you move on from stage to stage in goblin form and you defeat him, he comes right away in his same form that you defeated him. So obviously he's going to come back as Green Goblin, and then you're going to be taking the indirect damage or the direct damage when he flips. Onto his main scheme is called Hostile Takeover. There is a setup that says place the criminal enterprise environment into play, and which is this. We're going to see that in a second. And then shuffle the encounter deck, advance to stage 1B, which is Hostile Takeover. It starts off at 2 per player, goes up by 1 per player. It has a threshold of 7 and says, when completed, place 1 per player infamy counters on the criminal enterprise. You then discard 1 card from each player's deck for each infamy counter on the criminal enterprise. Now, one thing to be taken, if criminal enterprise is not in play and this advances, you just ignore the when completed. All right, and if you go past this, it's going to advance here, and then when revealed, just advance to stage 2B, and it's called Corporate Acquisition. Will start at 1 per player, goes up by 2 per player, and has a hazard icon, which means you're going to be playing with an extra encounter card every turn. If this stage is completed, so 10 max per player, the players will lose the game. So pretty brutal, especially it is the first main scheme that we actually see that actually has a hazard icon. So that is some cool design space here, giving penalties on the main scheme for not, taking care of business. Pun intended. All right, to the design of this scenario. Criminal Enterprises enters play with 2 per player infamy counters on it, and if there are no infamy counters, we flip Norman Osborn and the Criminal Enterprise. So this is how you get rid of Norman Osborn, by beating his cronies or his evil empire. And then when that happens, this is when you can practice your evil laugh. Green Goblin! And this is when he is going to flip and then do his when revealed effect, whatever stage that is. And State of Madness enters play with 2 madness counters on it. And if there are no madness counters here, flip Green Goblin and State of Madness. Now, as you can see, there's always ways to place infamy counters, but there is no way to increase the madness. So if you're playing in the solo, there's only 2. So if he schemes, he will remove the madness, and then you have to get rid of this again and then take the indirect damage. And this is where his strength really lies, is if you can find if you're not careful, he will drain you super fast of all your hit points on there. All right, so now let's take a look at all the cards in his kit. Now let's take a look at the ways that Norman Osborn is going to slow us down and interact. So the first one, very thematic, is called the Collapsing Bridge. It is a side scheme with a crisis icon, which means we can't remove threat from the main. It's got 2 per player, and it has a boost icon, and this is going to be very, very thematic here. It's going to say, place an infamy counter on the criminal enterprises, but if you cannot, you remove a madness counter from State of Madness. So this is going to make his... when he attacks you or when he schemes, either he's going to grow his criminal empire, or he's going to lose his crazy. And then,
what are you talking about, crazy?
Shh, you. He's going to lose his crazy and come back to Norman Osborn quicker. And that means you're going to have to remove more, deal more damage, and then take that penalty again. So I love this. Very, very thematic. Then he's got 2 side schemes called Oscorp Manufacturing, which come in with accelerations. Again, 2 per player, but if he's on the Norman Osborn side of things, it comes in at 3 per player. So I love, again, the duality of the cards that play off of what form Norman Osborn is in. So it's a little side scheme, not too hard. And then we have the Payoff, which is another side scheme, again with a hazard icon, and it's got the 1 boost, and again the star icon that says you place an infamy counter or you remove a madness counter. So again, all these side schemes just meant to slow you down and really, really pay off Norman Osborn's plan. Then he's got a few treacheries. I think my favorite one is All in a Day's Work. Because when revealed, you place 2 infamy counters on the criminal enterprise, and if you cannot, you remove 2 madness counters from State of Madness. And again, if you're playing solo, this is going to really play into him changing forward and punishing you to trying to defeat him fast. So you're going to be low on health a lot. And the boost icon, same thing. Either you place an infamy counter or you remove a madness counter. So it's powerful in both ways. And then we have the next treachery, which is called the Mad Genius.
Yes, you recognize me.
So when revealed, if he's a Green Goblin, he attacks the hero with the fewest hit points remaining, and if no attacks, this is going to gain Surge. And when revealed, if he is an Osborn, you're going to discard the top card of your deck for each infamy counter on the Criminal Enterprise, which is going to just go through your deck very, very fast. And then finally, he's got a whole bunch of thugs.
Yes, Norman does like his lackeys.
So he's got a couple of hired guns. So he's got 3 of those. There are 3 criminals that when you reveal them, you choose to either give the villain a face-down boost card or place 2 infamy counters on the Criminal Enterprise. Of course, if you place a face-down boost card, and then Norman Osborn would attack, he will not get the face-down boost. He was just going to place the infamy counters, but when he flips to Green Goblin form, he will have that extra boost for the attack. But if he schemes, obviously he'll be able to get the boost. And then finally, he has the Private Security Specialist, which are guards with 4 health, 0 thwart. Good lackeys for him to try to stall you. And then they have a star icon that places 1 infamy counter on the Criminal Enterprise. And if you cannot, you remove a madness counter on the State of Madness. So quick point out of the rules. Let's say he only has 1 State of Madness counter and he attacks you. And then the boost card is the hired gun. So what happens? So you would remove the State of Madness. His attack goes from 3 to 0, but the 2 boost icons will still take effect. So he will still hit you for 2, even though that he is now Norman Osborn. So when that happens. And then because the activation is already started, that's it. But if it was just, or one of the ones that have a 0 boost icon, there you go, like the collapsing bridge. So let's say it's this, but then he would attack you for 0. All right, he wouldn't place counters on the Criminal Enterprise. So before we go any further, one of the things that I would like to see in this scenario is an alternate loss condition on Criminal Enterprise. Because we all played the scenario, we've seen how easy it can be to just accumulate infamy counters, Ball staying in hero form, managing the little bit of threat that Norman Osborn puts, and then just dealing a ton of damage. So one sweet spot that I found and kind of embraced is an 8 infamy per player threshold on the Criminal Enterprise. And again, feel free to play with this if you want to kind of just check it out, see what you like. But that spot, I think it's very interesting because on stage 1, he needs to activate 6 times against you as an attack. On stage 2, he needs to activate 3 times, and then on stage 3, he only needs to activate twice. But again, once you're on stage 3, normally you're very close to ending the game. So it's a cool way that it might happen, but it's not a guaranteed, especially with some of the boost cards. So you can kind of risk it and to see, how are we going to make a big turn after this. So I like that little approach here. And again, feel free to use it if you want. But it's a way to not just game the system and make the scenario a lot more interesting. So this scenario here is a great way to explore the Expert 2 cards from the Hood scenario pack. So if you haven't done this, this is a great opportunity for you. So this you start with Formidable Foe, which is a permanent acceleration off the bat, and then every enemy in play gains Steady, which is 2 status cards. Then you have 4 cool cards. So you got an upgrade to some of the cards. So Exhaustion becomes Slug It Out, which is Peril, which means you're the only one who can interact with this card. Obviously Surge. And then you exhaust your identity and take 2 damage. As a boost, it says you deal a damage to each character you control, and then you give the villain an additional boost card. You have the Master Plan, who is now upgraded to Ruination, which again places 1 threat on the main scheme with Insight 1. When revealed, you discard cards until you find a side scheme. You reveal that side scheme, and then you place 2 threat on each scheme in play. So the main actually goes up by 3 here, and it's 4 boost icons. So if you're playing Protection, and then you have that protective counterpunch, I don't know what it's called there, the preemptive strike, boom. That's a great one for that. Then you have the Under Fire that gets upgraded to Cruel Intentions. Again, it has Peril and Surge, and then you reveal, you deal each player a face down encounter card and give the villain a boost card, a face down boost card. That's awesome because then everyone's getting an extra encounter card. Okay, and if you're playing solo, it's the same thing, but as a boost icon, it says deal yourself a face down encounter card. And then finally, there's a new card. So if you're like me and you never see your Shadows of the Past, Seek and Destroy is a new treachery from the expert, that insight that places a threat on the main and then searches your deck, discard pile, and the out of play area for your nemesis and puts it into play. So these are great cards to, if you haven't had a chance to play with, you'll give you an idea of what Expert 2 has in store for you. And obviously you can play with the standard 2 cards. Again, we remember the Dark Dealings, which is the upgrade of Advanced, the Total Annihilation, which is the upgrade to Assault, Overwhelming Forces, which is the upgrade to Caught Off Guard, Mob Mentality, which is Gang Up, and then obviously Shadows of the Past, my favorite card. All right, so that is that for that. Now let's go on to thematics and difficulty, and then just pure enjoyment. So in my top 3, my third spot for theme, I like the running interference. I do like Norman Osborn with the spotlight of media coverage, which he attaches to your identity, and then you double the when revealed effects, which is pretty brutal. It's not hard to get around, but if you get 2 or 3 encounter cards and that's the first one you reveal, it can just be brutal. It also has the All Tied Up, which prevents you from switching forms. It has the running interference, which is the side scheme with a crisis, and then obviously the Tombstone, which is a big criminal, a brute, which is kind of like in league with what Norman Osborn would try to do, and just hire some goons to punch you out and just delay you. My second choice would be the Wrecking Crew with guys like Bulldozer, Wrecker, Pile Driver, and Thunderball. So these guys, they're big, they're strong, they're brutes, they're messy, which is what Norman Osborn likes to do, and hire people to just, mess around with you. And then obviously there's a couple of combined effort here, which is a nice one, which each elite minion in play is going to engage with you, is going to activate, and if not, it's going to gain surge, but there's also a nice little boost, so an extra boost icon for each elite minion. Then we have the top talent that the villain in each elite minion gains retaliate. It's not super hard to get rid of. It's only 3 and then 2 hinder 2, so an extra 2 per player. And then the magic muscles, which says give each brute and enemy in play a tough status card, and then you discard, or if not, you discard until you find a brute minion and then you reveal it. So that's that. Again, difficulty wise, it's not really about the difficulty, it's more about the theme. So this one's probably a little bit higher just because these minions are a little bit tougher, so I would say maybe a 6-7. And then finally, the best thematic one I love is the Down to Earth. We call like Family and Friends, because Norman Osborn does know like Spider-Man's alter ego. He does know a lot of stuff like that, so I thought this was a good one. A lot of obligations in this one. While in hero form, you increase the resource cost of each event you play by 1. You have to go to alter ego and discard an identity specific card. Loose Ends, which searches for your obligations, and then if you change to alter ego form, you discard a random card. If your obligation was not revealed this way, it's going to gain surge. So it could be really fun. And then Threat or Menace, you may change form, and if you're in hero form, you place 2 threat on the main scheme, and if you're in alter ego, you cannot change forms. So again, that plays off of what he's trying to do. You got a bunch of common criminals, again, that all surge and do other stuff. And then you have the volunteer work, which is just it's just funny. It's just like, it kind of plays off being an alter ego and hero form. So that is my top spot. Difficulty wise, this is probably like a 3. It's super not hard. It's not about difficulty, it's just about thematics here. All right, now let's go look for increased challenge. So in my third spot for challenge, I do love the Osborn deck. Also, it's a little thematic, but But all of these things that gain surge that you attach to the villain. So we've talked about this one before. We've seen it already with a couple I think the Rhino. I recommended this one. But with Norman Osborn, it's really fitting. And again, you can kind of play off going to alter ego while he's in hero form, and then just trying to get rid of those here. Or you can be in hero while he's in alter ego and just kind of get rid of all of these things. So it's kind of like a cheesy one to play, but they all gain surge. So that's interesting. So, they're going in and they're just kind of, again, slowing you down. So I really like the Goblin tech, the Osborn tech from the Sinister Motives pack. Again, from the Sinister Motives pack, again, where there's a lot to do with Norman Osborn. To increase that difficulty, I really enjoy, difficulty on this one is probably a 6 or 7. It's not super hard, but it's still better than the recommended one. And then we have the Goblin gear.
Oh, I like this one already a lot more.
All right, Goblin, cool. So obviously the infamous Goblin glider, which doubles his activation once per round against a player. So that's always interesting. The remote navigation that goes and gets it. The limitless supply. That all his tech attachments gain surge. And then he's got the bombs. So he's got the concussive bombs. He's got the smoke bombs, and then the incendiary bombs. And they all do these different things here that kind of just slow you down and just annoy you. So after villain attacks. So again, so you can kind of play with those. So again, this one probably difficulty around 6 or 7 as well. It's still a nice little challenge, and if you haven't played Venom Goblin, this modular set seems really rough with Venom Goblin, but with Norman Osborn, it seems like it's a good challenge upgrade, but not super oppressive. And then finally, from the SPDR, it's another modular set that I've recommended before, and it is the Iron Spider's Sinister 6. I really enjoy this. There is a lot of criminals in the Osborn deck. So adding more criminals, so Sandman with Iron Spider, Bombshell, Hobgoblin, Electro, and Spot. But again, the best cards for difficulty is the Surge and Crime, which each criminal gains Surge. And then if there's no criminals in play, which there's a total of 9 in his deck when you add this modular set, you got to spend 2 resources to get rid of this. And then obviously the Grand Larceny, which can really halter you. Threat cannot be removed while there's a criminal in play. So that's pretty fun. I would say this one difficulty probably around a 7 to an 8, depending, how the encounter cards drop. So there it is for difficulty. Now let's just talk about it for fun. All right, for my general enjoyment of Norman Osborn, if you guys have watched the Saturday morning cartoons, one of the Spider-Man shows, he was really interested in Venom. So I really enjoy the symbiotic strength. It's got the swinging assaults. It's got a whole bunch of enraged symbiotes, which is very thematic to the cartoon. And then we got the unstable sentience, and then we got the improvised weapon, webbed up, and all these other fine cards here that, just play off this whole symbiote stuff. So as a kind of Saturday morning cartoon, I really enjoy this one with it. It's got all these little boost effects as well that kind of play off of what he does and kind of go within the theme of what he's doing. So I really like that one. Then I really like the galactic artifacts with him. The reason why I just think of Norman Osborn transactioning with what's his mace there, the Elder, like the Collector, and just like, all right, I'm gonna buy all your artifacts because I have lots of money. And so there you go. So it's got all these cool things there: the poison, the obedience potion, and there's a lot of stuff on this that can increase the challenge, but just still making it fun and interesting and thematic for me, just as a lulz. And then finally, I actually do enjoy just adding the Infinity Stones to Norman Osborn, just because it's just fun. Like, Norman Osborn achieved ultimate power as a normal guy, just like, he's the Bruce Wayne of, or maybe not Bruce Wayne. He's just like the Lex Luthor, and just like achieves ultimate power in the like in the comics, and just was able to hold on to the Infinity Glove. So I kind of like those ones just for the lulls of it. The games they're always interesting, and I do add my little lost conditions here. And finally, here are some of the best cards that you can use against Norman Osborn to make the game just a little bit less difficult.
You traitor! Osborn, you weakling, why are you giving them advice?
This goblin guy's got to get out of my head. All right, so first one, obviously, target acquired.
No, that's a terrible card.
Target acquired, it cancels a boost effect when you're in hero form. So again, this is super clutch if you want to keep Goblin on his Goblin form and not remove those madness counters, because a lot of his cards have removed the madness counters. So that is clutch to keep him in Goblin form longer and to just be able to drain him of his HP a lot faster. So that is the number one spot that I would recommend. Target acquired, put 2 in your deck or 3. 100%. Then obviously that's from the Black Widow pack. Then we have the Endurance, which is either from the Storm Hero pack or the Ms. Marvel pack. Again, that +3 health we saw every time he flips the Goblin form.
Yes, I bleed you dry.
Yes, you do. So that +3 health is super clutch here. That my second highest recommendation. And then we get the downtime.
That's it, go and relax.
Shut up. Man, this guy never stops. All right, so it gives yourselves +2 recovery. So you're going to need it to heal up really fast. So again, this is a basic card from the Storm pack or Ms. Marvel again. So good choice. Then we have from the Thor pack, we have Second Wind. If somebody's playing protection, being able to heal you for 4 or 5 is going to go a long way. Obviously from the Ms. Marvel pack, we have the Energy Barrier, which is super good because then now you can redirect damage to that Goblin. And then we have the obviously Force Field Generator that kind of prevents that damage, which is great. It doesn't redirect it, but it's all good. So that's from the SPDR pack. And then finally, my last recommendation would be some Crew Quarters from the Venom Hero pack. So when you do go to Alter Ego, you can heal up a little bit more. So you'll see if you're having difficulty with this because you're losing a lot of damage, all these little ways to heal up fast is going to make a big difference in your game experience. All in all, I really do enjoy Norman Osborn. I think it's such a sweet scenario. My only concern was about the easiness of this, but when you add a lost condition on Criminal Enterprise, it makes the game a way more interesting. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed Norman Osborn. I hope
the Goblin wasn't too annoying to you.
And guys, we'll see you again next week for the other Green Goblin mutagen formula. So guys, I hope you enjoy. Leave those comments down below. If there's any modular sets that you think, oh, that would have been a good include, please leave so in the comments. Keep on playing Marvel Champions and just enjoy yourself and play the game. Ciao, guys.